Welcome to the Flyers, Ryan Ellis. Ryan Ellis has been traded to the Philadelphia Flyers in exchange for forward Nolan Patrick and defenseman Phil Myers. Nolan Patrick was then shortly after traded to the Vegas Golden Knights in exchange for forward prospect and, I guess, AHL forward as of last year, Cody Glass. This is a big trade. This is probably Chuck Fletcher's biggest trade of his career within the Philadelphia Flyers organization. He's done other big moves prior in the past. Obviously, bringing over Ryan Suter and Zach Parise in free agency was humongous. Two of the biggest players. But I would say in the Flyers uniform, the Flyers organization, this tops Kevin Hayes, this tops Matt Niskanen. Though I love the Niskanen trade. And for those who saw my tweet online, why I said this isn't a trade I would make, I like the Niskanen trade. I love those type of trades. Ones where you're easily winning the trade. It's without a doubt, there is no risk in that type of trade. Trading for Niskanen at the time was exceptional. And it's funny, people doubted that trade, which I never understood. That was a monster trade where the only thing you lost was cap space and Radko Gudas, a third pairing defenseman. In this case, you're losing more. You're losing two guys who are developing still. And while they both had a down year, I don't think the players would have been traded for the player that they were traded for, which is one of the best defensemen in the National Hockey League, if their value was nothing. If the Flyers were fleecing them in some kind of way. I don't think that was the case here. Nolan Patrick will go on to Vegas where his ties to Kelly McCrimmon go back to him coaching, and obviously McCrimmon has been scouting him and has stated so publicly since then. So I think maybe they were always in the back of their mind an opportunity to bring him over because they moved Cody Glass to get him, who was a player that they definitely coveted. They moved Nick Suzuki in the past, now they're moving Cody Glass. But again, in this case, they're bringing in another young player. So this is a guy he coached who won an MVP trophy for him. I think he believes that Nolan Patrick has a lot more to give, as do I. I think that they didn't make this trade for no reason. And, I think there was obviously something worked in the background, right? Anthony Sanfilippo, credit to him. He came out with this story a while ago about the rumor about Patrick wanting out. Patrick struggled mightily here with injuries. It's believable, right? From that standpoint, it is. My whole stance is, why would I move a player that I don't have to? I'd make him sign, I'd make him work his way back into the lineup, and then I trade him for higher value. In this case, you did trade him for a top pairing defender. So it makes sense. From what I understand, Phil Myers, and this is not confirmed, this is a rumor that I've heard from a source, let's put it that way. So again, not confirmed. Also wanted out of town. If you look at that, also struggled with injuries. Also was demoted at times. As a young athlete, you can get frustrated. You could want a new start somewhere. I can understand it. But both players will be most likely rebounding their career in their new respective organizations. Close ties with Vegas for Patrick and probably a high attention to detail on him when he gets there. And same thing with Phil Myers, going to an organization that is known for developing defensemen. Will probably, I'm not going to say make us look bad, right? Because we gave up a lot to get a lot. But most likely he will probably rebound his career there and do well. Phil Myers is a big boy with a lot of skill. And while he didn't make the best decisions on the ice, especially last year, that is teachable and fixable, in my opinion, and comes with experience and definitely comes with team playing better around you. So, not that I blame the team for Myers' struggles, but I think there's kind of a trickle-down effect, right? If the team around you is stable, it allows you to be stabilized a little bit more. So, we say goodbye to Patrick and Myers. I don't understand why people are saying that we didn't give away anything. We gave away two high-valued young assets. You go back 2 years. And this is not a trade most people would be excited about in the sense to lose both of these guys. Now, having said that, Ryan Ellis comes over with a high pedigree, very good puck-moving defender. He's not the biggest guy at 5'11", I think 5'10", 5'11", 180 pounds, so he's about Shane Gosper's size, but he plays bigger than his size. He's not Timonen, but I would say he's on that caliber of Timonen. Maybe he's more offensive than Kimmo Timonen, He's not as physical as Matt Niskanen, but he is very good defensively. He is very good on the PK. He can definitely play really well on the power play. He's put up numbers every single season. He's been part of the best defensive group in the league, especially when, where they were a more dominant team. I mean, nobody really doubted that core. And Ryan Ellis was a big part of it, right? He's a former first-round pick himself. Developed slowly over time, but developed slowly into a great defenseman on a great defensive team. He comes here with leadership ability. He'll probably step into that leadership group day one, something this defense desperately needs, something that Von Provorov desperately needs. He's a right-handed defender, and quite frankly allows us to invest more in Provorov. That's one of the best parts about this trade is the investment in Provorov, which really needs to happen. Yes, you are losing two high-value young players, but you're investing in your team. You need balance on that D, and at the very least, you brought somebody in really good. Some people are concerned about his age. Personally, I'm not. I'm not the type of guy who says you're 30 and you're done. I think that's some players, but I think a lot of the better players especially play beyond 30 and are still highly valuable. Also, maybe help calm down that bench, get rid of some of that spiraling that was happening this year, which was just led to some of the most atrocious team defense I've ever seen. So this is a great way to balance that out. Ryan Ellis brings that, and I think that's exceptional. I will not be crying, and I don't think other people will be, if Patrick and Myers have great careers, even next year, and they blossom there, and Ryan Ellis is doing well here. That's it. It's done. Ellis is here. He's part of this team. He's not part of this defense. The reason I say I don't like to make this trade is because I just love pure wins. The Niskanen trade to me is a pure win. But having said that, I love getting great players too. Right, I think back at times where I did see Justin Williams traded, right, for Sami Kapanen. Sami Kapanen's a great player, but I'd rather have Williams in the long run, right? There's the Jeff Carter, Mike Richard trades. Those I use in reverse because at the time I don't think people realized how much we even got for them, right? Wayne Simmons was a third-line grinder, not one of the best power forwards in the league. People didn't think he was going to do what he did here. Braden Shen, people knocked him, all the way until he left, and yet, if you look back, he did very well in the power play. He was physical. He was a great forward checker. He went off to win a cup. He got us Farabee and Frost. So, again, high value. The Jeff Carter trade, right? We get Jake Voracek at the time. He's not even a point-per-game player. All of a sudden, he becomes one of the best right wingers in the league. Is in a Hart Trophy race, until he loses at last minute, putting up over a point-per-game of pace and point-per-game pace. And led the team in scoring this year. Great player. And then we get Sean Couturier on top of that. You essentially get two players who are as good as Jeff Carter. So you got to think of it that way. And that doesn't include the two supplementary picks on top of that. So that's why I say we pay high cost. Doesn't mean you shouldn't do it. Just because I say it's not a trade I would make doesn't mean I think it's stupid. Right? I think Ryan Ellis is a great player. I've said that in every single one of my tweets. There's no world where I think that Ryan Ellis is a mistake to bring over here. I just, was hoping we'd have to pay a little less than what we paid him. Phil Myers, I knew would have to go in a trade for a defenseman. I assumed that. Better Phil Myers than Travis Sanheim. Good thing it wasn't Sanheim and Patrick. That would be really hard for me to swallow. But at least the Flyers got what we needed. It opens up the door to a lot more moves. We'll see what happens with expansion, if Ghost gets taken. That opens up more room on the back end. You can slot up York, but you still need a top four guy. You need size. That's the one thing Ryan Ellis does not bring is size. He's a very good defenseman. I don't expect him to be out-muscled or thrown away. He's not like Shane Gostisbehere, even though they're about the same size. He definitely plays a more physical game. So I do expect that to be supplemented this summer. Size on D, probably a center of some sort, hopefully a legit third-line center at this point because no more Patrick and some injury concerns with Hayes and Frost. Hopefully that won't stem into this year, optimistically. And then you still need a goalie. But the beautiful part about Ryan Ellis, and this is why I think he cost as much as he did, is he's locked up for 6 years on a very reasonable contract of just over $6 million a year. So when you combine all that together, I don't think Chuck Fletcher could have found a better fit, really, for our current situation. I guess maybe the Seth Jones This was probably the offer for Seth Jones. I imagine it would have been Patrick and Myers, just looking at the return here. But Seth Jones didn't want to sign long-term, so that hampers. And that's kind of what I was talking about. Seth Jones is why I wouldn't offer that much. If you're not going to be here long-term, and that team is positioned in, and Columbus is in a position where they have to move him, I'm not going to give you what you want. Because again, this is about negotiations, about leverage. This isn't always about player value here. In this case, Nashville had plenty of leverage. They don't need to lose him. They didn't need to lose Ryan Ellis. We had to pry him out of there. So we had to give up high value and assets. And I imagine Kelly McCrimmon called about Patrick. He probably heard about that going around. We probably talked to Vegas at times about trading for players. There's other guys available this offseason too for D, so I really want to see the Flyers kind of continue to bulk up the D. I think they could use another veteran still, especially if you're going to move on from Ghost and you're going to bring in a guy like York. You really want veteran defensemen. You already have Provorov and Sanheim. Depending on what happens with Haig, we don't really know. Morin is kind of still a UFA, so we don't know what's going on with him. Right, but we still have a bunch of young names. We have Zamula, who would like to get some playing time as well. So get a veteran in here, and I think we will. And we need size. Get somebody big. Doesn't have to be the biggest guy in the world, but at least 6'2", 6'3", 6'4". A guy who can push people from out front of the net. Who can do what Justin Braun does, maybe even a little bit better if you can get that. But we're going to need another guy. But it's really good that we got Ryan Ellis. I mean, you're not going to find me complaining about the player himself. There are some people who are worried about his injury concerns. I'm not really that concerned. Actually, all 4 players that were moved have injury history. Patrick, obviously, the most severe with the head injury, the abdominal core injury coming into the NHL, which, again, I don't know why people don't want to give him the benefit of the doubt for dealing with that stuff. Those are immense injuries to deal with, and to play 4th most games dealing with injuries from your draft class, that's a compliment, not a downside. Most players aren't put in the lineup here for funsies. So if you can make it in the lineup with injuries, that's a testament to how you play. I don't completely agree with everybody that he's a perimeter player. Maybe this year, definitely this year. But again, considering the offseason he had, doesn't surprise me. Phil Myers had some injuries of his own coming in and out of the lineup, but stuff I think he can easily work through. Cody Glass, I had a season-ending injury. Had a severe, I believe, knee injury this year as well. So he also has his injury concerns. And then Ryan Ellis had shoulder problems, had a down part to his year, but then was playing well by the playoffs. So I don't think injuries are going to be a big part of this. I don't think people should panic about Ryan Ellis in any way. I just bring up the fact that it's a high cost. The player itself is great. Be excited. The Flyers need to be excited. The Flyers fans need to be excited. Fletcher had to make a move. There's no way that you're going to move forward with all these young assets and keep your job. You got to make a move. So, again, not a move I necessarily would have made, but I don't know everything, and I just think it was a high cost. I just love the idea of straight up winning a trade. I love the idea of only losing Phil Myers. But we get to keep our number 13th pick in this draft. Not the best draft class, but we're still going to get a great player, and hopefully maybe we get a center. Maybe we bring somebody in to supplement the fact that we lost a center young guy. We still have Jay O'Brien. We still have German Rubtsov. We obviously still have Morgan Frost. But we're going to have to bring in more centers at this point. There's other guys who are going to have to come in. The center group is going to empty out quicker than we think if we continue going on this route. We still have Tanner Lazinski, who has a chance to be on the team, obviously, to start the year. But you just can't rely on young guys anymore. You got to come in with a good veteran group. And let the young guys take those jobs away from them. Because when they're really good, like Joel Farabee was this year, they will take that role. And you need to force them to do that. No easy positions. Cannot be easy positions on this team. So that looks good. I'm happy with Ryan Ellis. I really like him. He was one of my top choices. I had him, OEL, and Seth Jones. I still really like Dougie Hamilton. I just don't want to give Dougie Hamilton $9 million a year. I just don't think he's worth that much money. I don't see him as. I actually see Ryan Ellis and him as about the same caliber player. So Ryan Ellis at about the same age, making $6 million a year. That's why you give up Phil Myers and Patrick. You got a guy who's locked up, and it gives you wiggle room to do other things. So let's see what happens next year. But I think it's a good trade. I think it'll be enough to get people off Chuck Fletcher's back for a little bit, which I don't think he really cares about, but it's a good trade. It's a trade of their things to come here. And if this rumor is true about Tarasenko, again, give the credit to Anthony Sanfilippo. Rumor that Tarasenko could be moved here to Philly after getting taken from Seattle and traded in a package for Voracek and a draft pick. And maybe Seattle grabs like Robert Haig from us or something like that, or Felix Sandstrom. I doubt they'd grab Sandstrom just because there's going to be other goalies available. And Sandstrom doesn't have a long resume, even though, he's a talented kid. It's not impossible. But there's a good chance they'll probably grab Robert Haig, who they can easily flip if they really need to. He's a very tradable player. So they could grab Robert Haig and then, trade with us to get Voracek and Haig and a pick. We walk away with Tarasenko. That does seem very plausible to me. Voracek makes more. He's a little bit older, so I could see you having to give a cost. Maybe that second from this year is possible. Second's a high cost, but again, for cap space and an age difference, I could see it. Tarasenko wouldn't have been available if it wasn't for that injury he had anyway to begin with. So we'll see. It's getting interesting. It's definitely getting interesting. And I think if we do walk in with Ellis and Tarasenko, those are two things off of everybody's checklist that we wanted for a while, which is kind of a pure shooter and a top-pairing defender. Imagine we still had Niskanen too. So let's see if we can get another defenseman in here as well. But it's a lot to get excited about. Beginning of the offseason, and I don't blame people for being just super excited. If I'm buzz-killing you with the fact we gave up assets, I'm sorry. But we did. I don't know why people are fighting that. We did. Otherwise, you're not getting Ryan Ellis. If you actually think this guy is great, which he is, then you gave up value to get him. NHL teams are not stupid. They're not like, oh, Patrick stinks. Phil Myers is number 4 defenseman. An average guy? Great! Give me that for Ryan Ellis. Why would they do that? Why would they do that? These teams believe in the players they traded for. Otherwise, they wouldn't trade for them. And I think we'll miss both of them, to be honest with you. And I think most people who do miss them are too scared to speak up because even me just saying we traded a lot to get him gets attacked. So imagine people who say, oh, I love Nolan Patrick or I love Phil Myers. They'll probably speak up later. But honestly, I'm very excited about Ryan Ellis. I think he's great. And I hope to see more moves, not exactly like this. I want to see us keep more of our younger guys. I want to see us win more trades. Like, if we can come up, I want to catch some teams in bad positions where they have no choice but to move a guy. So it'd be like, well, I'll take him. I want that trade where you guys see it online and go, how the heck did they get that guy for that? Like, that's crazy. Let's try to pull off more of those, Fletcher. But great start to the offseason. Let's fix this freaking defense. Let's get ready for a championship. And like I said, rebounding is within reach.